Heather, good morning.
Jason, good morning.
You got it
How
right.
are you? I
I
did.
am I am well. I am well. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm tired. It's
You're in the
it's
you're in the throes of cooking.
yes. It's treat tray day. So this is when I make all of our fun holiday treats for like people at church and make it with love and maybe a little spite by the end of the day because my feet hurt and I don't want to make them anymore.
I can
Just
understand that.
kidding.
I I have never really been a baker of anything.
Yeah,
But it looks like a lot of work, which is not really something I'm into.
right.
So
Right.
work.
Yeah. I remember one time you and I and my husband and our dad were going to the Seahawks home opener, and like Jason, no, you're Jason. I think Jeremy drove or something, and we were, saying thanks to Dad for inviting us, and he was thanking us for driving, and Jeremy's like, well, it's the least we can do. And you were like, excuse me, I'm just sitting here. I'm doing the least. Like, yeah.
It's
I,
very important that I get recognized for my
yeah.
leastness. Uh,
It was great.
I would like to share something with the internet.
Yeah.
This is a meme that is in relation to baking and Lord of the
Okay.
Rings. It
Oh,
all
wow.
comes together. And I have to share it through because someone sent it to me over Instagram. So I'm going to share my screen so everybody can see it. But I don't know. I don't look at my whole. There's nothing
Well,
here
now
to
everybody's
hide.
going to look at everything
But
else.
I mean, you could see I didn't get permission from Kara or Andrew to share their name that I sent them a message or they sent me a message.
Oh.
So I just am saying like chill everybody. Anyway, so more information than I really need probably for all of the many people who watch this or read this as it read it, listen to it. So is the meme that I wanted to share. It's oops, you added too
Oh
much
my
butter,
goodness.
sugar, flour, baking soda, egg, or cruelty, malice, and will to dominate all life. That's the ring right there. Because that's what Sauron
Amazing.
put into his ring. And so that's what you get. So just keep that in mind as you're adding ingredients uh into your different cookies and stuff. Don't put too much cruelty, malice, and will to dominate all life. That is all.
Amazing. Amazing. Also, Andrew Osenga,
Yeah.
isn't he like, are you friends with him? Isn't he like a musician?
He is like a musician, and I am not like friends with him. I replied to something or post. I don't know what happened. Oh, I linked
Okay.
him in my story, and it
That's
sent
right. Yeah.
a message to him, and
Okay.
then he did
Okay.
not reply to me. So now he's dead to me. Um,
Oh, don't say that.
he's not. Anyway, I love
Okay.
Andrew Osenga. His music is great, and if you have Spotify or Apple Music, it's on there. Uh, uh, The Morning is a great album. That's all I gotta
Fantastic. I
say.
love it.
Yeah. Anyway, Heather,
Yeah.
we were gonna tackle two chapters today.
Dosed.
Now,
Yes. We,
I
what?
only was able to listen to these this week. I did not have time to sit down and read them. I'm familiar with the text generally, so there's no surprises to me. But Heather,
I've heard of him.
you're gonna give us a summary. Do you
Yes.
want to do one chapter at a time, or do you want to just do both chapters and then we can talk about it?
Maybe we just do both chapters.
All right.
I think that's fine. So chapters 9 and 10, it is barrels out of bond, which I originally wrote down as bound, and a warm welcome.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's start with chapter 9. They had just, finished up their spider war, and
Spider
Thorin
War.
is, yeah. Arr. And Thorin is in the Wood Elf King's dungeon,
Yep.
but he's being fed.
He's getting some
So,
food.
he's like, I mean, it's not the worst thing. Anyway, so after the spider war, they're exhausted, trying to find their way out of the woods to no avail. And then like some wood elves come up and they just plop down and wait, really. Like,
Mhm.
okay, take us. And except Bilbo, he had the ring that, you know, made him invisible. So he like plopped on the ring or slid on the ring and went off to the side and followed the prisoners in secret. And they came to the wood elves cave, and it's cleaner and less dark than a goblin's cave.
I would
So
hope.
yeah. The Elven King asked questions of the dwarves and gets about as much out of them as he did Thorin. And then they were all taken to the dungeons, given food and water, and stay there until someone squeals. It's kind of like when we were kids and we would get sent to our room when nobody would fess up to why there was a giant hole in the wall downstairs.
Well, that was Ken and
Um,
Jeremy,
that was Ken and Jeremy, not my husband, Jeremy. That was our
our
cousin,
cousin.
Jeremy. Yeah. But nobody wanted to say why. So we went up to Grandpa's house.
Word. Going to Grandpa's house is where you went when you were in trouble. That's why Jeremy
Yeah.
was out here in the first place. Like the only reason we really know any of those cousins is because they were delinquent. They were juvenile delinquents. They were trouble, and
They
they were coming out
listen to
here.
this.
What?
Jason, they might listen to our podcast.
They know their story better than we do. I'll tell you that much. They know what they did.
I know they did. Oh Lord. Anyway, so yeah, Bilbo wasn't jailed, but he was alone. He wanders around, and he said it was like having to be a burglar that burgles the same house day after day. Which, man, stuck in a place by yourself doesn't sound horrible. In his wanderings, he found that Thorin was there too. He met with him. He passed along, you know, the keep the secret message to the other dwarves,
Mhm.
and they all trusted Bilbo. And through some more hiding and listening, he came up with the plan to get the dwarves out. It was going to be through the waterway that was used to transport items in and out of
Mhm.
the cave, castle, dweller, whatever. And when he told them about their plans, the dwarves grumbled, as they do. And he was like, okay, let's just lock y'all up again. You can think of something better, but I don't think we'll ever get these keys again because I'm tired of always saving your sorry butts. Paraphrasing, obviously, but
Not far
I
though.
think
I mean,
that's
it's not a
not far.
stretch.
I think that's really what Mr. Tolkien meant to write, but
Mhm.
was like, maybe Mr. Lewis was like, hey man, come on, zhuzh it up a bit.
Why
So
don't you throw
that's what he
some
did.
fawns in here or something?
Yeah.
I don't know. Can you put a light post
um,
for no reason?
that would be really helpful. Um, okay, so oh, okay,
You got
yeah.
the plan.
Yeah, got the plan and like gets the dwarves because like the head guard and the what's his butt butler like get drunk on the real good wine
Mhm.
and pass out. And so he steals the keys, gets them all, blah blah blah, and gives the guard back his keys because he still passed out after all of this. He stuffs the dwarves into the barrels and out into the waterway they went. Bilbo was like, "Oh no, I'm not in a barrel. Nobody can put me in a barrel." So he just had to like cling on to one, like jump down the trapdoor with the rest of the barrels and be like, oh, here we go. Um, and so he's, you know, going down the waterway. They eventually come to a bank where all the barrels get put to the side.
Mhm.
And this adventure had given him the sniffles, but he managed to burgle some food and drink. And then he got back to the barrels just in time to get back to onto the river and on their way to their destination, which is Lake Town. Is that correct? Okay. So that's chapter 9.
Yeah.
Pretty. I did that. I mean, that was pretty
That
quick.
was very quick.
These are
Yeah, good.
quick chapters though. Okay. So now chapter 10, a warm welcome. Um, so while he's on the water again, Bilbo catches his first glimpse of the mountain,
The Lonely Mountain.
the lonely mountain, and he did not care for it. He was not fond of that sight.
Maybe a
Maggie,
7 out of 10. Yeah, my
see
dog
your
is here.
pups.
Say hi, Max. Hi. I don't know if the way I edit the video, if anybody's going to see that, but she's here.
That's okay.
So,
Oh,
yeah.
hi Maggie. Okay.
Normally,
Um,
listener, I would close the door, because I want to isolate audio, but this is the only place my dog can go. So like I'm trying to be nice to her. So
Yeah,
anyway, so a warm
she's had a lot.
welcome. They go to
Yes, a
Lake
warm
Town.
welcome. Yes, gets the glimpse of the mountain. He's like, no thanks. He overhears the elves talking about how the land had like shifted and changed, so that this way that he went was really the only good road
Mhm.
to quote unquote road to get to Lake Town. One thing I will come back to, but it calls out Gandalf's other task, which doesn't come into this tale. Does it come into anything else later down the road?
I mean, kind
No.
of, sort of. I mean, it's his other task is dealing with the necromancer,
Oh, right, right.
and so that's where he's at. He's dealing with
Okay.
things. So
Okay. All right, whatever. So then they come to a town of men, capital men. The farriers had gone into the town for the night, and Bilbo started to free the dwarves, and continues to get the rest of them out after he gets Thorin out. Philly's like, I'm never going to eat an apple again, because he was just in a barrel of apples.
mhm.
I think that's like, I think there's a place called Apple Barrel Cafe here in Tulsa. I feel like I've driven past it.
Do you think it's dwarf focused?
I hope so.
Just like
I'm gonna have
get in
to.
this barrel.
Yeah. So there you go. When you ever come to Tulsa, we'll go to Apple Barrel Cafe and we can dress up like hobbits and dwarves. Oh my gosh. Let's
I
do it.
It would be great if they had no idea what was happening. Like they
Yeah.
never like they just they like apples, right? And then like we bring in 14 people all dressed like dwarves and a
Oh
shorter
my
person
gosh.
dressed like a hobbit and then a really tall person dressed like Gandalf the Grey. And
Oh,
then it's like we would like to visit the master.
I like
And then I
Jason, it
what?
has to happen now. It has to happen. So listener, road trip this summer to Tulsa. You have to stay somewhere else. You can't stay at my house, but we can all do this. Let's do it. Please.
Yes. Well,
Jason, yeah, you're
I don't
in.
know. I don't know if
Okay.
summertime Tulsa is calling my name, but
May then. May is decent.
is it? I mean,
Yeah,
it is Tulsa.
Jason. May is decent. It is not deli counter hot bag yet. And
Oh,
so yeah, that's that's July through a good chunk of September. You just feel like you're in a deli counter hot bag. Anyway, so they go into Lake
so
Town
close.
to explore. Thorin bursts into a hall and proclaims his presence and that he needs to talk to the master of their town. They bring him to the master. He goes through his whole Inigo Montoya thing again, and everyone is thrilled that he has returned. There's a song about the king's return, and everyone was brought in and cared for and fed and clothed, etc., etc. Um, Bilbo still had his cold after a week,
Mhm.
so and he still wasn't thrilled about the mountain. And then it kind of cuts away to a second like sidebar that the elves that had rafted them down went back to the Wood Elf King, told them what had happened, and he was all, "Yeah, right. They'll probs die trying to fight a dragon. So whatever falls them, let it be." And then Thorin was itching to get a move on, and the master was okay to let them go because they were expensive and caused all work to basically stop. And they set them up with ponies and supplies. And all I can assume is that they lose all of those things as well. But on they go. And only lowly Bilbo was thoroughly unhappy. Everybody else was pretty excited, but he was like, it's all going to fall to me again, isn't it? So
Yeah. I
there we
mean,
go.
there's a reason it's not called the Dwarves and the Hobbit. It's called the Hobbit. And I would also, I mean, this is Bilbo's account of the whole
Right,
situation too. So I mean,
right.
he's probably more. I mean, he's probably
He's
leaning.
acutely aware of his feelings rather than
Yes,
anybody else's.
yes. He never even asks Thorin, "What do you think about this? How do you
No,
feel? Talk about it." I mean, I know your dad is crazy and you haven't seen him in like 100 years, but how do you feel about it?
Is his dad still alive?
I don't think
His
so.
dad is dead.
His dad was in prison, and I think that's where Gandalf encountered him in
Uh-huh.
a prison of some sort and got the key and all that stuff from him. And so
Okay.
I'm pretty sure uh, Thrain is dead. So
Okay.
Thorin's dad, Thorin, son of Thrain, son of Thror.
Yeah, son of Thror. There we go.
Yeah, there's
That's the Inigo Montoya speech.
my name is Inigo Montoya.
Yeah.
So yeah, Heather, these are some jaunty little chapters. They just keep moving. Literally,
Yeah.
the things just keep kind of moving along, which is nice. The uh I do like that these elves in the woods, the wood elves,
Hmm.
are not painted as like wonderful, awesome people,
Right.
right? And there's a tendency to kind of think of elves as like really great, but these elves have like a drinking problem, right? Like they've got their own struggles. And something to keep in mind is everybody has a struggle of which we do not know. So be kind.
Exactly.
That's what I'm trying to
Exactly.
say. I'm not making fun of the drinking problem. Um,
Okay.
yeah. So like Bilbo spending 2 weeks by himself, basically walking, or at least I think it's 2 weeks, walking around by himself, invisible.
Invisible.
Like, oh, that sounds awful. And when he like reading about when he like tried to get out for a little bit to see what was going on, they're like, I got to get back in. Um,
Right.
yeah, there's some definite tension that's happening with Bilbo trying to figure it out. And so then when he's like, oh, we can go down the river, I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. That's the only way in. But then like
Right.
you got to all sit in these barrels, and they're in
Good
the
luck,
movie.
y'all.
In the movies, this whole sequence, like they introduce a love interest for one of the dwarves and an elf, and Legolas is introduced into the movie at this point because he's from Mirkwood, like canonically he's
Okay.
from there, and so they introduce him, and then there's like this whole like chase scene with orcs and the elves and the river, and it's just like ridiculous, over the top, and nothing at all like what's in the book, but it's Peter Jackson was given billions of dollars to make these movies, and they're like, well, make some cool chases and stuff. It's not in there. It's literally just we float down the river for a long time.
Yeah. Which is
Um,
boring I mean, for somebody to watch. It's not exactly the most
yes,
riveting
right.
television or
But you could
film
just say like
experience.
we floated down the river for 3 days, and then
like like a narration.
yeah, well, not even
Is
like
the
a
Hobbit
narration.
narrated?
Like no, not even a
Okay.
narration. They just like get in the river and they go, and then they like you know we cut to Bilbo like trying to get them all onto the raft or something, and one of the dwarves could come out and say, "It's been 3 days." That's all you need.
Mm,
It's like, no, you got to
yeah.
make it action packed and exciting. And sometimes
You didn't
adventure
though.
is not exciting.
Right.
So
Sometimes adventure is like
just being really
puckering.
soggy and smelling like apples.
Smelling like apples. I'll never eat another apple as long as I live.
Yeah. So the other thing that is different from the book as well, in the next chapter, they get to Lake Town, and everybody at Lake Town, once Thror announces himself, is like, the king under the mountain, huzzah, 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 this is great. But in the book, in the movies, they're like threatened by the dwarves, and
Oh,
the dwarves try to keep themselves secret, and they introduce a character named Bard in early as like this big, huge, like important person, and he is important,
yeah.
but he's not really highlighted in the book at this point. And so there's all this stuff that's just like you added way too much into the movie to if you wanted to stay faithful to the book. And the book just kind of keeps things moving.
Right.
Nice because they need to get to the mountain. So
Right.
yeah.
I will admit something today, Jason. Whilst in the throes of baking, I was listening to the chapters and I just kept going.
Oh
So
yeah.
I think I'm at chapter 14, 15.
So you listen to On the Doorstep
Yes.
and Inside Information,
Yes.
and that's a longer one. And then Not at Home.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Cool, cool, cool.
I've gotten to the I won't say it, disregard. But I have heard the name Bard. I need to go back and re-listen because the kids were also watching Guardians of the Galaxy while I was
Hmm.
listening and baking, so I did not pay super close attention. And that seems like a pretty important chapter that I didn't pay attention to. so
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah. Bard is important.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. Wow. And it's great that we get to know Bard. I think, I mean, I understand why they included introducing Bard earlier in the movie and making him more
Hmm.
important in the movie because he is an important character. He has important things that he
Sure.
does, but it adds so much to the movies that they're already too long. The Hobbit movies are too long.
And there are three of them. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes. There are
And are
three
they all
three
like,
hour movies.
that's the dumbest? It's not necessary.
I agree. And there are really cool things in each of the movies, but each of the movies could have been shorter.
Okay.
Um, it could have been one movie, and I would have been totally happy. So
How long would that movie have had to be though?
48 hours. No.
Is
It
that how
they,
long it takes to watch all the extended cuts?
no, that takes about 16 hours. I'm almost done with another rewatch. So, but I do
Another
other
rewatch.
things. I like the other day, like yesterday, I was watching. It's Christmas time, so this is a Christmas movie for me because there's elves in it. Um, and
Okay.
so I was watching. I've been working through Lord of the Rings trilogy extended versions, and the I'm on Return of the King. But like yesterday, I was cataloging my comic books while
It's
while
just
watching
cool.
well that was on in the background because I'm so familiar with it.
Sure.
So um yeah, so now I can see when I look at a box like what's in that box, which is important to me with my terrible handwriting. But now I know. It's like, oh yeah, that's the
Don't you have a label maker? You don't have a
uh
label maker?
we did. It's not working, so I just used a Sharpie. Um
Oh,
yeah, anyway, but
sorry,
so
back to the
that's what I
books.
do. I do
Okay.
want to. My edition has some artwork. So
Ooh.
that's the depiction of Lake Town. So it's built on
Okay.
these stilts out there, and
Yes.
the people from Lake Town were most likely originally coming from Dale, which was
Yes.
destroyed by Smaug, right? And so they moved onto the lake. And if you think about it, like the moving to the lake when a dragon burned your house down. Like, sounds like a good idea, right? Because, hey, we're on water. Fire's not as big a deal. Um,
When
so
we got the supply.
the previous chapter as well also has a depiction of like coming into the forest, the wood elves
Wow. Oh, into their cave.
caves. And so yeah. So
Wow.
a lot of yeah, this edition, I like that this edition has art in it because it helps take a get a feel for it. So like the front gate of the Lonely Mountain is in the next chapter.
Okay.
So
Is
yeah.
that smoke coming out of the cave?
Yeah,
Or
because there's a dragon in there.
speech bubbles?
Yeah, it's thought bubbles.
That's what I thought it was.
It's Smaug farts. So yeah. Anyway, I mean
Nice.
these chapters just kind of move things along. Like
Yeah.
yeah, I do like how I prefer The Hobbit to the movie The Hobbit. The book version is better. It just keeps things moving.
Yeah.
Unlike this episode of this
Yeah.
podcast where I keep
I
saying they got
know.
to keep things moving.
They got it. Well, with that, there was one thing. Hold on. Um, so wait, is Lake Town a town of like humans
Yeah,
then?
yeah.
Okay.
It's a town of men. But
I
the
just
elves and the Lake Town people, they have like trade worked out.
right.
So, because the elves don't make anything, that's what some one of the things we learned earlier. Like this elf he doesn't really want to make anything, but he's jealous of other people's treasures and all this different kind of stuff. And so he has the men, the city of men, like produces the wine, it produces the
Hmm.
produce, produces produce,
Oh
uh,
my word.
and that they import it into the wood elves kingdom. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I used to get the words produce and poultry mixed up, and I remember carrying in like
Oh,
apples or something from Costco with our parents when we were real young. And I was like, man, this is some heavy poultry. It was not
you
chicken.
know,
So,
no, Heather, at one time, I always knew you weren't the smartest person.
hey, yeah.
One time I was making a salto map, listener, viewer, of the
Oh my
state of
gosh.
Washington for fourth grade Washington State history. My sister, who was in second grade at the time, so not as smart as me, um, she came and looked at my map and said, "Where's Africa?" So, um, yeah, I mean, she's
We
come a
had
long way.
okay. Yes. We had just learned about Africa, like in our second grade Miss Ringo's class.
Yeah, Miss Ringo was
And
great.
she was okay. Um, I had my first experience with like Norwegian goat cheese in Miss Ringo's class, and it tasted like peanut butter and had like a
Mm,
consistency of like congealed peanut butter.
mm.
Wasn't my favorite, but anyway, we had just learned about Africa, and so I see Jason making this map, and I think like, wow, I wonder if Africa is on this map. So that is why I asked, where's Africa? But
You
anyway,
make that explanation. It doesn't help.
I know it doesn't help, but my second grade mind, I'm thinking like I didn't know that there is
Yeah.
whatever. I
The
didn't
world
know
is
how to
big.
read a
And
map.
this is one of the reasons why I think The Hobbit is so helpful for us is just as Bilbo was learning that the world was bigger than his little cave, little hobbit hole,
Hmm.
you also have to recognize that the state of Washington does not contain Africa.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah. And this is all
Really
part of
doesn't.
learning.
And I have learned. I have learned. All right. Uh, the other thing, I know we probably covered this last week, but like the Wood Elf King, like
Andrew will.
you're right. Why is he so bitter toward the elves again? I cannot remember.
Because
I'm
this
sorry.
was in last week's reading. But
Yeah,
the the dwarves and the wood elves have different accounts
of
um
what happened
of what happened, but
and who owes what.
the elves believe that the dwarves stole from them,
That's right.
but the dwarves were saying we were just taking what we were owed for our labor,
Right,
essentially. So it's a labor dispute.
right.
So
Okay.
so much of the conflict in these books boils down to administration and labor disputes. So who are you with? Are you with management or are you with the worker?
With the
So
worker.
sure. But
Yep.
what if the workers are terrible?
Well, I mean, good point. Good point. I don't know. Do you watch The Gilded Age? Have you watched that at
I
all?
don't know what that is.
Oh, it
Is it a
is.
show? Is it television?
It is. It is on Max. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it is like late 1800s, which is when the Gilded Age is. But the episodes that I'm watching right now, there is a like workers dispute. They're about to go on strike. And so, yeah, anyway, that's what I thought of with the workers. The workers in this instance are great, and the robber baron leadership is not. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
Is
that's
this
all.
in America?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's in New York City.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that is happening in like Pittsburgh or something because it's in the steel mills.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Cool. Sounds interesting. Very
it's a
much
great
enjoy.
show.
I very much enjoy that era of American history
Do
and
you?
studying it. Yeah. World
I
War
also,
between the Civil War and World War One is crazy.
yeah,
America, the fact that America survived all of that is truly amazing. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And just the like innovation that just constantly came out during that time frame.
Hmm.
And I mean, it hasn't stopped. Like things continually innovate, but just
Hmm.
like I don't know, there was just like
They're
so
making new stuff
much.
still.
Stop it. Just there was so much that like happened during that time
Hmm.
that like I don't know. You look at the like giant buildings in New York and how many of those not during that time but were built like in the early 1900s, and you just think how like how did they do that, and
Hmm.
it's all done so beautifully and so well. So
Yeah, I
anyway,
think this is totally not connected to The Hobbit, but
it's not, dang it, keeps happening this way.
one of the amazing things to think about, like we grew up like pre-internet,
Hmm.
right? And now, like, so our generation of millennial types, like we remember a pre-internet age.
Yeah.
During that period of time, they would remember a pre-electricity age.
Right.
Like, and the first president who had electricity installed in the White House did not want to use the switches because he thought he would be electrocuted. I can't remember which one it is, but yeah, like maybe Harrison. And yeah, so like that was happening in the world. And
Right.
if you could just imagine like our life, but like when the power goes out and we're like, we're all gonna die. But it
Right.
turns
They would
out
have thrived.
for thousands of years, humanity did not have any kind of electricity and they did okay.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
No, but we are like, no, I can't do it. What?
By the
How am
end
I
of
gonna?
like 4 hours.
How am I gonna charge my phone? The power is out. So
Oh, just the worst. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, these were short chapters,
yeah,
like you said, kept
they're
things
jaunty.
moving. They're jaunty, which I appreciated the respite from
The spiders.
the yes. Oh my gosh. Um, and that looking ahead on the doorstep and inside information, feel like maybe we could combine those two as well.
Sure, I'm down.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I do. I mean, we should have talk about this off air, but we'll do it right now as we're recording this. Next week, as our normal recording time, is the day before Christmas Eve, and
Oh,
so
yeah.
and then the following week is the day before Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, right? And so it's like the holiday season, and so
Yeah.
I just wanted to throw this at you, Heather. Should we take a couple weeks of
I
not
think that's
recording
okay.
and then come back in the new year?
Yeah, I think
All
that's
right.
totally fine.
Okay.
I think that's
Cool.
what we should do. So, anybody that's listening, you get a lot of time to just catch up
Unless you're
on,
like years behind, then just keep going. Like,
or
so
right. For you, everything will be business as usual.
yeah.
We'll have another recording before you're even done with this one, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So,
But if you're going week to week, you're going to go week to 2 weeks off to week. So classic expression. Um, so it's a fortnight. That's what a fortnight is that 2 weeks.
is it
So,
really?
yeah. So, and they were in Lake Town for a fortnight.
For a fortnight.
So
And
it
they
all
got
works out.
fat and happy and
Yeah.
clothed, and
And that's what's
look at
happening to
us.
us at Christmas time too.
Exactly.
It's all
Just
the
gonna
same.
be fat and happy and
Same.
sassy.
All right. Well, listener, if you have any thoughts or questions, or you're totally confused on why this keeps happening, send us an email, hobbitforming@gmail.com. You can also follow us at Hobbit Forming Pod on Instagram and on Threads.
Yeah.
And if you, yeah, comment, like, review, subscribe, ring that bell, all the things, whatever the kids say.
I I will just call out if you saw Jason's thread a couple days ago. I don't know who at Heather Ray Olsen is, but
I typed it in and I saw your face and I
well,
pushed
that's
it.
not me. That's
I
not
don't know what
me.
happened. And then it's like, well, I could undo everything and start over, or just like, well, I just live with my mistakes. And
And
I went with the latter. Just,
but the worst part, though, Jason, is that you spelled my last name wrong. This is almost as bad as when I asked Judah, your son, if he knew what my last name was, and he goes, Anderson. So
that sounds about right. That sounds about right. My son. Okay. Do we have a minute, listener?
yeah,
I mean, where are you going to go? You're locked in. Uh, let me find this. My son texted me because our name Duman has a
Mhm.
history of being misspelled,
And
to put it
mispronounced
nicely.
and
Yeah,
yeah.
and so he texted me the other day. Open with preview, dude. I'm gonna share my screen real quick. He said, "Dad, have you seen this one before?"
Oh
And
no.
and you see that?
To him.
Yeah, Dehim. Dehim.
Judah to him.
Dehim.
Who are you
And
talking to him?
I don't know what this evaluation is here, so please don't read too far into it. But he got a total of fives all the way down. So, um,
Well, good job.
yeah, Dehim, Judah Dehim.
Good job to him.
And
That's
he's like,
amazing.
I've never seen that before in the history of my life. And he's like, do you have, and I think he wanted to share some other ones with his friends that he's like, oh, they spelled my name wrong. He's like, do you have any other ones? And I'm like, no, that's the worst. So like
That is probably the worst.
that is the worst. So
I have seen Heather Demon before. Like
yeah,
it was just Demon, not Deaman, but Demon. That was a fun one.
our
And
Safeway club card, because Ken set it up, our brother Ken. And
yeah.
this was back in the day when you had to actually fill out the paper to get it. And we filled this out in California, which is so weird. We were on a
What?
choir trip
Oh,
and
it's
we went to
okay.
California and we were buying Safeway clears. And
Those are
those were
so
so
good.
good. And he filled out the club card, Ken, Deuman, but they typed it in as Deaman. So our name in
Yeah,
Safeway is actually Demon
Demon.
all these years.
Yep.
Did you know mom and
Yep.
dad no longer have their home phone number?
Yeah.
I just found that out a little while ago. I tried to call them.
How do you you tried calling them at home?
Yeah, I was like, this
Because
number
you
is
tried
disconnected. I
calling
was like,
each of their
what?
cell phones
Yeah, I tried their phones
and they
first,
didn't
and then
answer.
I was like, I'll call their home. They're olds. Uh
They're old. Yeah.
and then it's like no
No,
longer. And I was like, is my childhood over? So
this
but
is
that's
it.
our
That's how it ends.
yeah, that's it. That is our club card number still is tied to that phone number and it still works.
Yeah.
But
That right. That does still work. Anytime I'm in Washington, though, I do typically use their club card
to get gas,
to, yeah,
yeah, me too.
yeah, good. Okay.
I do too. But I also contribute because I work by a Safeway. So I go to Safeway kind of regularly and in
Well,
$8 increments, I contribute to that.
while I am there, I also contribute because I will buy myself groceries and stuff, but like to, see the fruits of my labor. So,
The fruits of your labor get burned up in the combustion engine of your vehicle, of your rental car.
well, it's not a rental car. I always drive one of their cars.
Oh, so you're paying for their gas. You don't even have to feel bad.
There you go. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And no, we don't have to go into this. Anyway, thanks everyone.
All right. We'll see you later. Good morning.
Jason, good morning.